Good evening, everybody. We're live again for our connecting series of amazing talks with amazing people. I've got another amazing lady here tonight, Jenny Moore. She's a medium. She's also been in the military, so she's got a very interesting story. So we're going to have a chat to Jenny today about her life as a medium and a bit about her experience as well in the military. So I think it's an interesting combination, quite unique as well. And we'll just see where it goes. Really, with anyone tunes in live, you can ask questions. Just post your questions in the comments, and we'll get to them later on. In the interview. And we'll just see how it goes. So anyway, if you are tuning in, share this interview so we can spread the word, and you can watch it afterwards anyway. Cause we'll be on YouTube tomorrow, all being well. So if you miss it tonight, it's not the end of the world. So anyway, back to business. So this is as I said, this is Jenny Moore, medium. So I'm going to let Jenny just introduce herself as well. Tell us about who she is and a bit about herself, and we'll go from there then. So okay, it's over to you, Jenny.
Well, good evening, friends. As Jason says, it's lovely to be with you all tonight. And yes, I'm a clairvoyant spiritualist medium, and it's a bizarre world of interestingness. It's a mix of sadness and joy and wonder, and it's magical in its way. Just to see people's hearts being uplifted, giving them hope, opening their minds to other possibilities. And it's just nice for me as a medium to be able to work with a different array of people and the stories and the issues. And you never thought there was so many. You just didn't think there was so many that people are going through. I mean, you live your life and everything that's going on in your daily life. And some days you think, oh God, not again. Or I'm the only one going through with this. And then I go and do services within the churches where I'm then working in front of people and discussing things with them and bringing spirit through, which I'll go into in a minute. And then it just dawns on you. Not everybody in this world is happy. Not everybody. Because I think when you're going through issues, you assume that everybody else is all happy and you're the only one who's not. And there's so much upset, and there's so much hurt, and there's so much hatred. And there's so much nastiness being done in secret amongst families. And you then start to unravel it in a private reading, let's say, and then what a private one-to-one. And there's days when people go home and I close my door and I think, there for the grace of God go I. Because it's astounding what's going on in other people's lives. And there's days where I think I've had a crap day.
Yeah, you're right.
And I sit back and I think, God, why does nobody help me from the spirit world? Because my life is really shocking. And then I sit there and I think, do you know what? We're doing all right.
I agree with that. I agree with that, Jenny, because I work with different people as well with lots of issues. And, sometimes when you think you're having a bad time, when you look at other people, what other people are going through, you think, actually, I'm not too bad really. And I think sometimes that can be a really good thing. Well, it helps to kind of motivate you as well. Because when you think your life's, it's one of them things, isn't it?
You're going over
someone's always in a worse state than you, aren't they?
Exactly. You're going through a few hurdles and you always think you're being blocked from this path and nothing's opening up and people are just turning on you, whatever. And it happens to us all. And I think the message is really, do you know what? We're all dealing with something. And at the moment, in this present world that we're living in, the amount of sadness and heartache and mental health.
Yeah, 100%.
And that, I mean, I do a lot of mediumship, and the mental health comes up in nearly everyone.
Yeah,
and
certainly at this time.
I'm talking about suicides and self-harm and depression and bipolar and schizophrenia and stuff that, I mean, and I'm still going back 20, 40, 50, 60 years to when spirit come in and they tell me about electric shock treatments and being locked up in asylum. And you know what? And you think, I know we're having it hard now. I don't mean that to downplay it in any which way. But society now has closed themselves all off to the ongoing world, not just with what's going on, but before that, we were all very self-contained in a way. So nobody really, if you didn't know anyone with depression, it's because really we never spoke to anybody, apart from going on social media and telling everybody, hi, we're making a cup of tea now and doing something daft. But people live in their secret minds of misery.
Yeah.
And that when you hear spirit coming in and telling me their story of their mental health or the reasons why they committed suicide and the sadness and the electric shock treatments and the treatments that they got by the hands of professionals 50, 60, 70 years ago.
That's really interesting, actually. Yeah.
And you know, and you're gobsmacked. And then you bring it up into modern day where everybody's out in the community. Nobody knows, because really we've been taught not to share anything unless we're on Facebook, on social media, and actually don't.
Yeah.
Nobody really shares their issues. Everybody just goes on and goes, hi, everybody, and puts a fake smiley face on.
That's
and
part of the problem, isn't it, as well, really?
Yeah, because nobody taught
closed
their
down.
issues. It's like we're all being taught to shut up and just get on with it. And the time for getting on with it. And then we had this big campaign, is it last year and the year before, about speaking up and all the celebrities speaking up.
Yeah.
It was a great thing because people were starting to open up. And then the lockdown comes, locks us all in our houses, and people who wasn't near the mental health range is now all suffering with mental health. I mean, you couldn't write it. You couldn't write it. And I've done readings in these last few weeks on Messenger, and where we do it like this, one-to-one, to somebody, or they've come to my home, and you know, your heart's breaking. And I bet you this year, let's say every week, I mean, I did some the other week, and in 1 week, I had 8 suicides. Out of 5 readings.
Yeah. Well, I can say, Jenny, because I work with people with mental health issues, and I haven't done much work this year because of the lockdown. But the work that I have done, I'd say, I'm not exaggerating, I'd say 75 to 80% of them have been suicide or really serious, and that I've never seen that before, and it's because of isolation, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, people want to reach out, but then they feel weak for reaching out. So then just get on with it. In which case it all piles on a bit more, and you know, and people are just, because the world is so fast paced, and if you can't keep up, it's like running a race. Then you just got to drop out, and people just can't keep up with the pressure of what's going. They could keep up before. We were finding it hard to keep up, to pay our bills, to go to work, to do this, to do that, to keep up with the Joneses and the Smiths and everybody else.
Yeah.
And they're going on holiday, but I'm working 40 hours and I can't afford it. But nowadays, now we've got this lockdown, everybody now has got, I think, should or would know somebody with emotional or mental health issues.
I think that's right. I mean, to be honest, I don't know many people who haven't got mental health issues, to be honest, Jenny. You know, which is crazy, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I say, it's, when we talk about my military career later, you know, I know mental health issues because I've been there. And I think that's why in my mediumship, because I also believe that every medium, you go down your pathway, and therefore when spirit asks you to start working with them, it's because you've got a set story.
Yeah,
I used to know some ladies years ago, and we used to all go out and do our work together in a group. And it used to be really weird in a way, because I'd suffered with depression many years ago. Well, I still do on and off, to be fair. I don't think you ever get rid of it. I think you learn to handle it. And I think that's what people assume, that once you've had it once, you don't get it again. And I think, do you know what? It's always on a rollover in it. And depending on when you can handle things, that's when it starts to pile in.
Yeah.
And that's where my learnings as a medium has to come in, because I've got to try and teach that to somebody else in a reading. Because it's not just about a reading and saying, here's your granny. It's about moving people forward. It's about inspiring. It's about encouraging. It's not about making them cry. Because, you know, I had one medium say to me years ago, if you make somebody cry, Jenny, you know you've done your job. Wrong. If I make somebody cry, I've started the healing.
Yeah, that's what. There's still a way to go, isn't there?
If I make someone feel 10 foot tall, by the time they walk out my door, or by the time they walk out of a church, I've done my job.
Yeah.
And that for me, it's not about making someone cry, because grannies come through. It's about empowering somebody. It's about encouraging somebody. It's about making somebody seeing that actually today's not a bad day, and we can get through it.
Yeah,
because spirit always brings us, and this is what I was saying before, when a few of us used to go out together, and I've suffered with that. One of my other friends had been was in an abusive relationship and had been a battered wife. Another lady, so basically every one of us had a different story. And it was weird, because when we started our readings, you know, like these psychic nights in pubs and things. I did with them a few years back. And you got to know the other meeting, you got to know what their stories were. Because somebody would come and sit with you, and as soon as they sat down, you'd say, you're not with me, love. Yeah, but I want you. Yeah, but your story's not with me, because you're not my vibration.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get that.
And I would say, Kate, can you do this lady afterwards, love? Because she's your vibration.
Yeah.
And it would work out, or she'd shout, Jenny. And because you can't work with everybody neither as a medium.
No. You've got to be tuned in,
you know, I always try and explain it to people as it's like being in an orchestra. And you've got the string instruments, and you've got the brass instruments, and you've got the drum instruments. All of them together play the band, and they bring out the music together as humanity does, because we've all got a different vibration, and together we all become perfection.
Yeah, it's a good analogy, that, actually. It's really good, that, yeah.
And then, but individually, if I'm in the violin section, I can work with everybody with that vibration on string instruments. So even if you've got a guitar, I'm most probably going to be able to work with you because you're a string instrument. But if you're playing a trumpet, I'm not going to, because I don't play a trumpet.
No, I've seen the same sort of thing. I've done similar things before, and different mediums, and certain mediums just can't connect to certain people, you know, and it's just because they're on different vibrations, and that's, you know, like you say, that's a really good advice, because, you know, if you can't read for someone, then pass them on to someone else and pass them back, and you'll get the right people, won't you?
And I even now, I mean, I had a chap come last week, and lovely fella, you knew he was in distress, but could I work for him? And yet I'd just done 2 lovely readings, and he stepped in, and as soon as he sat down, I thought, oh, blimey, I could feel it. Anyway, I tried, and I opened up, and I searched, and I got bits and bats, but it wasn't running the way I mean, I didn't want to make, I'm not a medium that makes it fit. Well, can you take it anyway, and we'll sort it out later. If it doesn't happen in this room, and we don't find it, you ain't doing it. And if it's not rolling, because a reading for me should, from start to finish, it should be a beautiful conversation with you, your client, and the spirit. And it's the spirit who's leading the way. I'm only like the operator in between the phone call.
Yeah.
And I've got to translate what's being said, and it's got to be harmony all the way. If I'm stuttering on and off, on and off, it means I haven't got a good connection. And I had to explain that to him. And of course, he was a bit fed up. And so was his wife. But I had to then say to them, but there's another lady up the road who I'm being told by Spirit is the one you require.
Right. That's great, isn't it?
I don't mind that. And, you know, and it's not about the money for me. It's not about, it's because I try and sit with people for as long as it takes. I'm not one of these that rush in, rush out. If it takes an hour, it takes an hour. If it takes an hour and a half, it takes an hour and a half. If we have to have a cup of tea afterwards, we have a cup of tea afterwards. It doesn't matter. We just take our time with what we've got.
Yeah. Well, when you said that, Jenny, it's, you know, actually you're doing them a favour anyway. At the time they'll think, well, it's a bit disappointing, but you're doing them a favour really, because you're not tuned in. There's no point giving them nonsense. Send them to somebody who can read from them, and you know you've done a good job. Yeah.
And that's what I said to this gentleman. I said, "I'm sorry, sweet." He said, "Yeah, but all my friends have been here." He says, "And you've been." I said, "Do what?" I said, "That's very nice. I've been highly recommended, but I've got to do what's right." I said, "I can either make it fit, or I can do what is right by you and Spirit and get you the right medium."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because that
it's like getting the right treatment in a way, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's like going to a doctor and getting the right treatment, isn't it? If they say, well, this treatment's not right for you, we'll give you something that's right, then you'd say, oh, that's perfect. You wouldn't disagree with that, would you?
Well, no, I mean, there's no point in giving me a paracetamol if I need antibiotics.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And we're working in a very subtle energy. And the auric field is, when we start a reading, especially on a one-to-one, when I'm doing an audience or a congregation, you're still feeling that energy. So it's all energy. Everything around us is energy. It's all this beautiful energy is vibrating. And even though you're feeling that energy, you've then got to take it from the guts and bring it all the way to the crown and open the doors to the Spirit and allow the Spirit then to come in. And you're doing Spirit a disservice.
Yeah, that's right.
And that upsets me the most. That if I upset Spirit, then my guys might not want to open the doors.
Well, no, they might not want to come through again, or they might think, well, this channel's not very good. It might be as well.
And as far as I see, you're only as good as your last reading. I don't need to go all the way through the spirit realm. Right, don't bother going to Jenny because you're not going to get out there.
Yeah, don't bother with Jenny. Don't bother with Jenny Moore anymore. You know.
Yeah, don't bother going to her because she can't. She'll just give whatever. But the point being is, you've got to be able to give people what exactly it is they've come for, and you've got to have that. It's that compassion. It's the upliftment. It's letting them know you're as human as they are, and not being able to read for somebody is just being as human.
Yeah, well, it's being. You've got to be honest and open with people, haven't you? Really,
you've got to be, because that is where my reputation comes. Because having a good reputation, because if you do one bad reading, that will reach 10 more people than your good one.
Yeah,
you know, but
right,
years ago, I'd have been really hesitant, I suppose, to say to somebody. I've had to learn over the years to be calm and actually accept that you're not Billy Big Bollocks.
No.
Because you can't everybody.
A lot of mediums would think that's a bit of a failure, wouldn't they? You see, and you medium would think, I don't want to fail. But at the end of the day, if it's not right, don't keep flogging a dead horse or whatever.
Exactly, and it's not. It's because a lot of people as well hang on the words of what a medium has told them, and you've got it. And I've always taken to heart it's personal responsibility. And it's personal responsibility of the medium to be straight with people.
Yeah.
And to say to some, because a lot of people who love going to me, I mean, you do get what I call medium junkies.
Yeah, you do. People
And
keep calling different mediums all the time. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, I've had a meet, and and I've been to such a body, and I've been, and such a body said this, and I say, hang on, when was your last reading, love? And they say, oh, 2 months ago. Get out. Do you know, and I say it in the nice, and I sit them down and I explain it to them. I mean, I had a lady ring me up. Oh, I spent £2,000, Jenny, on readings, but I believe you can give me a good one. No, because do you know? Because now you're becoming a junkie to. They've already known to everything.
Well, you're letting the medium decide your life. You can't make a decision without a medium, and that's not the way to live your life.
The way it's supposed to run. You know, I also go with this. You're here to help somebody, because the moment that you bring up certain subjects in someone's life that's full of passion for them, because they're living it. And if you say, well, Spirit have said this, this, and this, you've got to then understand, is that coming from my understanding? Or is that coming from Spirit's knowledge of the situation? Because as a medium, I've had to learn over the years to discern what's mine and what's the Spirit's. And if I know it's mine, I've got to then jump all over that and push that out. Because what Jenny would do is not what Spirit's telling me to tell them to do.
No, exactly. You might have your own opinion, but it might not be the right opinion, might it?
Exactly. And I think that's where a lot of mediums also have to learn, and this is their personal responsibility, that everything that comes out of your mouth, somebody may take very, very literally.
True.
To the letter. That the media, and I know this to be true, because some years ago, my very good friend is also a medium. Anyway, she had a daughter-in-law that went off to see a medium, and he turned around and told her that her husband was messing about. Anyway, she come home and she took it literally, but it's because she wanted out of the marriage. So therefore, she took what literally the medium had said and threw him out.
Right, God, right.
For adultery. He wasn't messing about. It was actually her. But she turned it. But the point is, people take it literally, and then through their own understanding or how they perceive it, then they will do that, and they will turn whatever knowledge or whatever words that you've given them from the Spirit.
Yeah.
That's why it's important that people, when they go for a reading, the medium is purely telling you what they're picking up from the Spirit. As a medium myself, I've got to keep everything that I think of the situation out of it. Because as an ex-squaddy, I've got a different perspective. I've got a very squadified way of seeing things. So I'm a lot harsher in that way, but I'm a lot softer in other ways. But I've still got to keep my squaddy sense of humour out of when I'm working.
Yeah, of course.
I've got to purely then pick up on what Spirit is bringing to me. And that is where I've got to learn that personal responsibility, because whatever comes out of my mouth, someone could take quite literally. And either end up harming themselves, which then falls back on me. And I'm not just talking about in this world, I'm talking about karmic energy work. All the energy you put out there is all going to bounce back at me if I give off the wrong information, if I do it for my alter ego or whatever it might be. You've got to be so on the line with people to inspire and encourage and help to lift them into the light. Because at the minute, this world is just so thick with negative energy and dark energy, and every one of us is being battled with something.
That's true.
And this is where you're allowing people to see that they're not walking in the dark on their own.
You've got to empower people, really, haven't you?
I mean, and that's every day when I open up to Spirit, to open up in prayer, I ask for that, to encourage and empower. And so people can find their best selves and to live their best life. Because if I can do it today, there's no point in just me doing it if everybody else is miserable. Because as much as I want love and light to be around us, and I can throw it out and say, oh, isn't it a lovely day today? the collective consciousness of human has to pick up.
Mm.
And together, that collective consciousness, because by me inspiring one lady sat in my home or on Messenger or wherever, how it's being conducted, if I can inspire one and then she inspires one, then
That's right.
through,
That's it. It goes
one,
out, doesn't it? Like
we
you
could
know, it's
inspire
like
10. Yeah, we could inspire 10. When I'm doing a church service, if I'm speaking to one lady and then can inspire a congregation, then again, my work is done. You know, when I go do obviously up to this year, it's all been knocked on the head this year. And a lot of services are being done online now, a lot of the spiritualist churches, which again can still be done, and you can still empower, and you can still get that energy moving for people. But you know, when you're going into a church or on whichever way, when you're with a group of people, again, it's the upliftment. You've got to bring people out of what they stepped into that church with.
Yeah, you've got to put them back on a different path sometimes, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got to allow them to walk out vibrationally changed. So every time I do a service, I mean, I walk up and down, we have a laugh, and I always ask for the joy of spirit and the funny stories and the sad stories. And then when I'm talking about the sad stories, I'm not talking about, because in my mediumship, if I'm doing a one-to-one, I've got to go into acute detail. When we're doing a stand-up, I don't want to go into detail. I don't want to go into how somebody took their own life. No. Because that's personal. And I know there's mediums out there who think by doing that, it's showing spirit in a good light. Well, actually, you know what? I don't feel it does. Because that is a personal story between that person and that spirit person.
Yeah.
So, but the point being, the spirit come in and they're funny. They're witty. They've got this cracking sense of humour. And I mean, they are funny. I mean, the other week, I was doing a reading and Ken Dodd stepped in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I had Bernie Manning. But not just that, but think of those type of people. Yeah. Like the inner sharpos of the spirit. Yeah. You know what I mean? And all these old ladies and gents with funny sense of humours and jokes and funny stories. Because everyone, even though they're spirit, every one of them has a personality. Yeah, that's right. Every one of them lived here. And every one of them has loved and lost, had work and lost it, had health and lost it. For everything that we're going through now, there is something in the spirit from every situation. It's already happened. Yeah, because we've gone through that as a course of civilization. People have gone to war. All right, we've never had all this cyber stuff. This is the first time for all this cyber stuff. But as war and illnesses and viruses go, this world has done all this before. Yeah, we've been here, haven't we? The people have gone through all this. Your grandmas, your granddads, your aunties, your uncles. Do you know what I mean? There's so much that's gone on in civilization before. There is nothing in the spirit that they can't handle. And we think we're the first time we're doing it because it's already been done generations before. And there's going to be somebody in the spirit that's going to step forward and give you the answer. Yeah. Let me just ask you, Jenny, now. So if we can go back to when you first sort of started as a medium, tell us about how that came about, and was it when you were really quite young? And just tell us a story about that came about. As a young, I would have to be about 3 or 4. I always knew there was something different. I always knew that the shadows would move. And obviously, as a kid, you just get on with it. And I still now believe that up to 7 years old, every 7 years your body changes. And up to 7-year-old, a child still sees spirit. Right. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know. That's interesting, that. Yeah, up to 7 years old. And then after 7 years old, then the energy changes. The energy then from the mother to the child severs that little bit more. Right. So by the time they're 14, they're coming into adolescence, it's then they're coming into their own independence. So energetically wise, they're becoming their own individual.
Right.
Why they're always mothers attached, and they have some people have issues with mothers from being a young, because they've carried it on. But either way, so as a young girl, I knew there was energy. I knew there was people in the shadows, and I knew they would talk to me. And I grew up in Salford, Manchester, and then in the 70s. To me, it was a great place because we were all in the same boat. We were all poor. We were all sort of eating jam butties and bottle of corporation pop. Do you know what I mean? Nobody was any richer. But then we moved. I think I was about 6. My grandma took me to a jumble sale, and I bought my first Bible for a penny at a jumble sale, and I kept that Bible for years. And then about 8 or 9, I started going to church. It was like I knew, but none of my family took me. I just went to church with my friend on a Sunday. And because I just knew that I had to be closer to God. And then we moved up to where I am now, in Astley-near-Lee, when I was about 10. And another friend, funny enough, again, on the same sort of way, said, "Oh, do you want to come to this church down the road?" So off I goes, and it was just a normal church. I had a Sunday service, Sunday school and things of that nature. And I just felt like I always needed to be near a higher divine. Never understood reasons why. And then my mother started to learn how to be a Jehovah's Witness. So then we ended up going down that pathway. But between all of this, the spirit was still around me. I could feel them. I knew them. And even when I got in bed at night, my mum would open my door and say, "Who are you talking to?" "Nobody. Playing with my dolls, Mum." Because I had imaginary friends everywhere. I couldn't say to her, "Can you not see all these kids?"
Yeah.
And then when I was about 12, 13, 14, used to start lifting me out of my bed. And the walls would, and I bet you any money, once the people listen to this, they would have had something similar. Because it's like Alice in Wonderland, because it's like the world would come in on you. And you feel like you're in a tiny box as a big person. And then the world would go massive and you can't touch the walls. And all this was going on. I couldn't work out what it was. And I ended up coming down with a severe flu when I was about 11. And I had these big bumps on the back of my head. And for about 2 weeks, I was in and out of consciousness. But, when you're quite poorly and you just want to sit. And I remember seeing this man sat there. Every time I woke up, there's this man. And he almost looked as if he was from the American Civil War. Sat in this swing chair, in this rocking chair. And it used to frighten me. But that was the only time I ever felt frightened. And I couldn't work out if his suit was blue or grey. But he was an old fella. He looked like a general or somebody, but he looked like he knew what he was doing. And I always felt threatened by this feeling. But I could never work out why. And even when I came out of it, I used to tell me, Mum, this happened, that happened. And then I started seeing things a little bit more clearer. And that's when I started getting this lifting and this dropping. Right. And then the walls would go in and out. And I used to have to touch the wall physically, be this close to the wall, but I knew it was moving away from me and then coming back in. So I had all this. And it's only when I've spoken to mediums since, who also was poorly, when they were about 10, 12, 13, 14, they all had this feeling.
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
I found it. So anyway, we went on to be Jehovah's Witnesses. And I always knew I wanted to be close to God. But I knew I was a healer. And the Jehovah's Witnesses didn't believe in healers.
Right.
Didn't believe in seeing spirit, because if you saw spirit, it was the devil's work.
Okay.
Right? And it's not a case of putting Jehovah's Witnesses down. they believe their way, as every other religion does. But I knew I wasn't one of them.
Yeah, right.
Because I knew I had a different energy. And I couldn't explain it to my mum, because my mum would just give me more Bible lessons and send me to more Bible studies, because she was trying to help me, thinking I was mad. And then she took me to a psychiatrist because there's something wrong with her. So I couldn't say it to my mum. So I ended up going inward with it all, because I couldn't carry on. And then when I was about 18, my grandma died. And that really sort of shook me. And it's from then she started, I smell things for weeks. It was the same smell. It was like a sweet hay everywhere I went. And I'd say to people, "Can you smell that?" No. And I would say to people, what is around me? Is there a cobweb around? And I'd be doing all of this. And I still didn't know. And then I was getting a bit disillusioned then with the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I thought, I have to make a break of this. I've got to find my own way. I knew instinctively. I just had to strike out. And then this one day, a friend of mine said to me, "Do you know what, Jenny? I think I'm going to join the army." I said, "Oh, do you know what? Go on then. I'll come with you."
Right, that's a big decision. Big decision, that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was like 20 years old. I went, "Go on then. I'll come with you." And half of me is because I felt controlled by the religion that we was in at the time. I felt, but I knew it wasn't me. So I felt an overall control that, what am I going to do when I go home and tell my mum at the age of 20 that I'm going to join the army? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not something you wear every day, is it? You know,
no, it's, they are conscientious objectors, but it's a very close shop, and that's how I felt it to be for me. But I knew I had to strike out. And I knew my grandma's energy was around me, but I still didn't understand it. And I always knew from those earlier days when I was being lifted and dropped, that I was going to be a medium. But I didn't really know what a medium was. Because in my mum's world and in the witnesses' world, it was the devil's work and it was the witch's work.
Right.
So, and I'm thinking, God, I'm one of them. So I always felt myself to be a bit possessed, because that's the way I've been taught.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So by the time I'm 20, I'm thinking, I'll join the army. If I get rid of all that, I can then run my own life.
Yeah.
So off I trots. So I goes off and joins the army and comes back. Still didn't tell my mum. Went off to work and carried on doing my thing. And then this letter come. My mum opened it. "Oh, dear Jennifer, we've accepted you into the army." Anyway, that's how my mum found out.
Yeah.
And I just stuck by my guns and I said, "I'm going." So I've got to. So I just packed up. Anyway, we went. And there was my military career, which we'll go into later. And so that was 1987. 1989, I went to Northern Ireland and served there for 9 months.
But that was an experience.
Yes, because it was the 20th anniversary at that time. So it was quite an eye opener. And then 1990, the Gulf War started, and that's where then I went to the Gulf. And I remember being in this trench, because we had to do big open trenches and put some tin sheeting over the top. Now, can you imagine, we're in a desert and the British Army's just turned up and it's never rained for years. The British Army's just turned up and brought the rain with them.
Right.
Because I got pictures of the desert being green.
Right, good, great. Right.
So anyway, which I'll talk about in a bit. But the point is, this one day we dug these trenches and the rain, and they were on solid ground. We'd done them obviously because we was in a war zone. And while we were in them this one day, and we was going through this scud attack, and we all had to put on these masks, our NBC kits. It felt like, and I never panicked, and all the training I'd ever done, I'd never panicked. And this one day, the trench started to collapse on us.
Oh,
you could feel here, you could feel your face inside the mask, because the scud attack was ongoing. So maybe it was a psychological thing.
Mm.
But this one moment, I freaked, and all my face started to feel like it was blistering
Oh
because it
God.
was inside my mask. So that means I've got a leak somewhere. It's not
Right.
real. Something's got in. And
Oh.
yet I'd never ever freaked in NBC. I'd never done it. In fact, it was a subject I just got on with. But this one day, in the middle of a scud, and there wasn't a scud attack. That's the point. So it's obviously a psychological, and because somebody
Right.
else, and usually when somebody else is, you try and calm them down. But this one day, and the panic set in. I've got a leak. But then the trench started to collapse, and then we had to try and get out of it. So I think the whole thing together was a bit of drama.
Mm.
And as I always remember sitting in this trench, feeling this on my face and trying to calm myself. And I said to my grandma then, if you're really there, let me survive this.
Yeah. Right.
And I'll do whatever.
Mm.
Get me home. But don't take me home in a body bag.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's the first war that was the biggest toxic war.
Mm.
So there was every toxin going out there.
Mm.
So now all I said to my grandma was, make sure I get home.
Mm.
And all this, it was like this peace just descended on me. Anyway, we get out of this trench that's starting to collapse in because one girl, there was a couple of us trapped in it, do you know what I mean? But it was starting to give. And you're talking about a couple of tons of earth, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, God.
You know, you could be buried alive. But anyway, moving on. But the fact is, I felt this peace coming over me. And anyway, we all gets out. And as you do, what was all that about? But I knew. And then it reminded me of the training we did in December in Germany and how cold it was. And I used to sit in the back of the truck and everybody was shivering because obviously we'd just done a 7-mile run and you're sweating and you're getting cold and everything else. And I used to just sit there and it was almost as if, again, spirit was around me.
Mm.
And they would put this like a heating blanket and people say, Jenny, how come you're so warm? I said, I don't know, I'll just keep doing this. And I kept doing things with my hands. And it was like I was generating heat. I didn't understand it.
Mm.
So I had all this going on pre-going to the Gulf. And then obviously this incident in the Gulf. And then we had a so-called scud attacks afterwards. And obviously all of the war. But there was a calmness that sort of seemed to come over us. We all had a bit hard days where we were all fed up. But in the moments of where you think you're going to lose it. You have this calm. Anyway, obviously I came home. And then because of, when we're going to talk about the military stuff in a moment, all the injections and all the things, all the toxins that we was given. But after it, we all knew there was something different.
Right.
And that's where the illnesses started to kick in.
Right. Right.
And even in the Gulf, they started to kick in. We started to forget things. And we started to get depressed. And there was people on suicide watch in the middle of a tent in the desert because they were trying to escape. Going where? You're in a desert. Which way are you going to run? You're 300 miles from anywhere.
Yeah.
There was no camp there, but there were people trying to run away in the desert after having these injections. This is, and this is the things they don't talk about. These sudden mental changes of what's being put into you. Those guys, sending off rounds and taking people's hostage and all this, because again, we just had a lot of injections. It changed a lot of people.
Okay.
And on the little bits, people were forgetting little things, parts of the day. They were forgetting it. And we were young soldiers. I mean, I was 24. I wasn't some old girl as I am now. I was 24. I was in the prime. I was invincible.
Yeah.
And then, so by the time I get back from the Gulf, these things they were noticeable. And even when you spoke to the other girls and the lads that had been, we would all laugh it off. We'd all laughed it off. Because none of us wanted to admit it.
Yeah.
Because again, you're in the army. It's not something we do.
Yeah.
And the next point of which my mediumship, because I drank a lot of being in the army as well, to be fair. So when you come back from any deployment, you always go out on a beer.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, you know, you get tanked up. But I always knew then spirit was always around me. It's almost as if I had my own armed guard.
Right, yeah.
Even when I was drunk as a skunk, I would always get home. I would always say to them, I know you're there. I don't know who you are, but make sure I get home. And every time I got home. And then I met and married. In fact, when I met my husband, I knew by the time I was 27, 28, I was going to meet this man with brown hair, blue eyes. I could describe him. I was 24 at the time. When I was 21, when I knew that the very first time, I knew I would lose my first baby. I knew I would marry this man quick. By the time I'm 24, I haven't met him yet, but I've got a couple of years to get drunk yet. And then I'm meeting Tim at 27, 28. Within 12 weeks, the fourth day we met each other, we got married.
God, wow.
And a year later, we lost our first baby, which but it's almost like what I prepped. It's like I knew. And then I knew I was going to have twins. And I knew I'd lose one of those, if not both. Right. And I ended up losing Emily, and we kept Rebecca, which again was down to go for things. And this is how, and even though I still didn't know I was a medium, really, but I always, and in the end, I said to Spirit, I know you're out there somewhere. I know you're going to get me sooner or later. I know I've got a job to do, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And by which time now I'm becoming sicker and sicker. My legs are starting to play up. I've got arthritis in them. My memory's not good. I'm never going to get promoted in the army because I'm going to get medically discharged on medical background because I can't walk any further. So there's a lot of things going on. We just lost, like I said, we've lost our second baby and brought Rebecca home. So I gave birth to Rebecca and we buried Emily a week later. 9 months later, I had my daughter Maisie. And another 9 months after, I lost my third child, or our fifth child. So I've got 3 to the spirit and 2 here. And that was the day, and I just more or less, I got out the army just around then. I was depressed. I was on 2 sticks. Couldn't think straight. My friend brought me this book, and because she was trying to help me remember things, and she said, and we was learning about aromatherapy and reflex, or she was at the time. And I was interested in it, but I couldn't remember. I couldn't retain any of the information. And she said to me, here, Jenny, she says, I found this book. She said, it's about metal mercury in your mouth. Silver fillings. She said, just read it, because it very much sounds like you.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, all right. So I sat and I got so upset because every time I'd flip the page, I couldn't remember what I'd just read. So I had to go back to the beginning of the book, the first page, and read again and get as far as I could. Put the book down and go and do something. Come back and have to start the book again and get a bit further. But I couldn't remember what I'd just bloody read.
Good grief. God, fine.
And so for me, I've got 2 babies. One's about 18 months and one's about 7 months. I'm walking around on 2 sticks. My husband doesn't know where to go to work and leave me because he doesn't know what he's going to come home to. I'd make him his tea and it could be curry shepherd's pie because I couldn't remember what was going in the pan. So it's simple. I mean, I'm talking about simple things.
Yeah.
And things were just... Anyway, by which time, this is when the depression kicked in. And I sat and I cried and I said, I can't do this. I'm doing bad to these kids. And this one day, I thought, sod it. I'll go up and see the maker. And I thought, I'll take all these pills. The kids are asleep. My husband will come home. The kids will be safe. I'll be gone. And then I won't put any burden on him. As a lot of people, we've all been there. And I sat because I knew the strength of me. I knew I had strength. And in this day, I just sat and I cried. I said, what is it you want me to do? I said, because I know you're really there. I says, and if I need some help, so I'm going to take all these pills. I says, I'll come up and sort him out. I said, oh, you can help me. And if you help me, I will work for you.
Right.
And at that, and I swear not, my little dog at the time, Jack, walked into my bedroom, stood in front of me, and had the biggest white feather on his nose.
God, blimey, that's a message, isn't it?
And I sat, well, at the time, it wasn't for me, to be fair. Because I said, and I screamed at the dog and said, is that it? A white feather? But I knew, hang on, pack it all up, go and have a cup of tea, we'll sort you out. I knew it. And I said to him, you've got 3 months. This was December. I said, you've got 3 months. Help me in 3 months. I've read a book. My friends brought me that book. Help me. If it's right, find me the man who read it, or who wrote it. And I'll work for you. And bugger me, 3 months later, with the Gulf War Association, we went off to Butlins in Blackpool, where this American lady turned up, who was the daughter of the man who wrote the book.
Wow, good grief, wow.
And he was looking for 6 volunteers to go to America and have Gulf War treatment because he believed he could cure it.
God, blimey, wow.
And I walked up to her, blind drunk, because a girl said to me, don't bother going to her, Jenny, because she can't help the likes of you. I mean, we're all there. We all got the same things, because everybody wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I walked over, blind drunk, and I said, I've read your dad's book, or I think I have, because I can't remember it. I said, but I know he can help me. And she said, come back in the morning when you're sober, dear. And 7 o'clock the next morning, I woke up sober. With my 2 sticks, I struggled over to this, this arena. And the woman was setting up. And I tapped her on the shoulder and I said, do you remember me from last night? Your dad can help me. And I went through all the protocols everybody else did. And she said, in a month, she says, about next 6 weeks to a month, she says, 6 people will be picked and those 6 people will get a phone call. And I turned to my husband, and this is the first time I turned to my husband and says, in 1 month's time, on a Friday night, at 7:15, she will ring and tell me I'm going to America. And bang on, a month later, Family Fortunes was on the telly. The adverts came on, and the phone in the corner of the room rang. And it was America calling.
Wow.
And that's in the May, I went to America. And this man, Hal Huggins, Dr. Hal Huggins, who worked for the American government in the early years in dentistry, learned about silver fillings and learned the toxicity of them and learned about how it was poisoning the brain. And he also realised that MS and autoimmune deficiencies, all those disorders could be cured by removing the fillings and following a set protocol that he'd set up. And because he went to the American government with it, they barred him from working. Anyway, he wrote a lot of books. All his books are out there. And 6 of us went to America, and it was a protocol of dental removal, hair, spit, spinal fluids, urine, sweat, anything that could come out of your body they wanted a sample of.
Right.
And they went and they analysed it, because all the analysis we had in this country had been taken and apparently had been destroyed by accident.
Coincidence, isn't it?
And then they all came back and he told you exactly what was in your blood, why your bodies were doing this. And he'd set up for the 6 of us. We were there for 2 weeks, so every couple of days the next person would go, and you'd have all your dental removed, everything that was foreign in your mouth to be removed in one go. It was my turn. I was there for 12 hours. They're all stood there in spaceman outfits with great big sucking machines. And I knew I got in that chair. I had about 34 injections into my mouth, 12 hours. They had to have a heart doctor on call because our heart, all 6 of us, had very low heart rates. So any of us could have gone into cardiacs at any point. They knew the liver wasn't doing well. They knew the kidneys were failing. But apparently that wasn't the least of my problems, because as Dr. Allen said, all the analysis of me systems that come back, he says the only saving grace is, Jenna, you'll never remember any of the pain that you're going to be in.
Oh, blimey.
He said, because bit by bit your body's shutting down. And I sat in that chair. I had to put my whole faith in him. I just knew I had to. And for 12 hours, those dentists went through each tooth, and it was the weirdest thing. It was like, do you remember Quantum Leap on the telly?
Yeah.
When, at the beginning, they go and sit in that room while he jumps into their body, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How it felt like to me. That the old Jenny had been took out and been gone sat in this room. Go and sit over there, Jenny. And this new Jenny is now going to take over. And the old Jenny, I believe, is still sat there, because this new Jenny had to take over. And for each tooth and each amalgam filling and every root canal and everything of that nature, he took out, and it just went. Every tooth, there was this, as he took it out. And it was fabulous. And anyway, for 12 hours I lay there, come back groggy, fell fast asleep. The next morning I got up without mistakes.
Wow.
And then it started, and this treatment and all the supplements. And then they took me for this brain scan, and there was a NASA fella there that worked with astronauts, and he was going to measure the brains and tell you what brain scans. Now, a couple of days just before I had all this treatment, he'd done them on then, and then he was doing one afterwards to see if there was a comparable.
Right.
I said to him then, my brain fog is here. I said, but they keep telling me I'm a liar. And he put this thing on, and he said, Jenny, he says, have you got an headache? I said, yeah. I said, they were doing me a spinal tap yesterday. I said, and because of my arthritis, they couldn't get no spinal fluid out. He said, well, funny enough, he says, it's only your headache that I can measure. I can't measure any of your brain waves in your head.
Right.
So my husband thought I was brain dead, to be fair. Anyway, a couple of days later, I went back, and he puts this thing back on. Oh, sorry. And then he actually points out on the computer screen, and he said, there is your brain fog. This bloke found it. And it was like something out of one of these horror films, a skull cap with all these wires coming off. I didn't think they existed then, but they do. And this man knew everything about me. And he said, I can even tell you the job. He says, because he works with astronauts, he has to work out whether they're going to freak in space or whatever.
Right.
And anyway, so 2 days later, goes back to him, puts the cap on. And he said, you haven't got an headache today? I said, oh, no, I haven't. He said, I might be able to measure your brainwaves today. Anyway, he does what he has to do. And then at the end of all of this, he turns up and he then tells us all what the results were individually in front of everybody. And he went through everybody's, and he more or less banged on about what they could do, what the capabilities were, and what the potential. And then he gets to me, he said, I'm going to leave you to the end, Jenny. He said, because you're the most fascinating one here. I always set out for being something special.
Yeah.
And he then came to me and he says, he says, your brainwaves were so low. He said, when we tried to measure them, he said, it's only because you had a migraine, could we measure them? He said, but your alpha levels were that low. He says, the only other people that we see that in, he said, is very, very deep thinkers. And people that say they can meditate.
Wow, that's interesting.
To a depth. He says, and it's only because you had an headache, could we measure them? He says, are you interested in things like doctors and medical procedures? And I said, yeah. I said, I really want to go and learn about aromatherapy and complementary therapies and natural therapy. He said, go and do it. He says, because I think you can. He said, but the most fascinating thing I found, he said, was all these brain waves. He said, drop that low. And he started laughing at this point. He says, have you ever heard about these people who say they can talk to the dead?
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a scientist, a NASA man.
Yeah.
And he laughed. And he said, because I don't believe in all of that. he said, but I measure, I said, I do this on professional people, what you lot have had. He said, I do tell people what their capabilities are. He says, and these people who say they can speak to the dead, he said, also have these very low alpha waves.
Wow.
He says, and I've only come across one or two of them. He says, and the ones who say they can do it don't have the brainwave. He says, and there is some, he said, like a doctor who has to think very, very deeply when he's doing a big surgery and he's got to do it on his head. He says, they go into sort of a contemplative time. He said, you've got that brainwave. He said, but it goes deeper. He says, and I think, and I started laughing. And I said, well, I know I'm a medium.
Yeah.
He says, go and learn it. He said, and just let me know.
Right. Wow. That's amazing.
And now for me, I find that the most interesting, that actually they can measure it and they know exactly what it is.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting because scientifically, then they've validated it, haven't they?
Exactly. And for all these years, they've always said, no, it's not worthy of any exploration or looking into. This chap works at NASA, puts this thing on my head, and then tells me. I'm not even a medium at this point.
They know a lot more, don't they, than they let out.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm not even a medium. So anyway, we all comes back from America. Anyway, 2 weeks later, I'm sat with my friend I'm back in England. My friend comes round and she says, so tell me all about it. And we're going through it. And I said, Liz, I said, I've got to try and find, because I'll tell her about this doctor. I said, I've got to try and find something now. I said, that helps me with this. I said, because this doctor reckons that I can do it.
Yeah.
And she said, well, funny enough, she says, I found the Spiritualist church down the road. I said, right. I said, and at that, and then this voice came in, and it got to about here, and it said, now it's time to start work.
Wow. That's an amazing story. Can I just ask you one thing, Jenny, about so when you said that you had all these ailments, was that down to the vaccines and the drugs that you got in the Gulf then, you think?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, before we deployed to the Gulf, we like you do with when you go on your holidays, you have to have so many injections depending on where you're going. Obviously, we're going through a war situation. That at the time they thought Saddam had all these Scuds and all these missiles and all these nuclear biological weapons, which we now realise it was all lie, yada yada yada. But anyway, so we all had to have these set injections, and I think we had botulism, pticeras, anthrax, tetanus, yellow fever. There was about, and I'm counting them. There was one called Secret. There was about 8 and 9 in the first couple of weeks, so we had to go and get all these jabs. And then obviously, as you know yourself, about every 6 weeks, then I think it's for 2 or 3 jabs, you've got to go back and get them.
Right.
So we had to have our first lot, and so we got a couple of them. And then the next couple of weeks later, we have to go and get a couple more. And then obviously we've got, and it's this time of year, because we was deployed, and we actually got to the Gulf this week.
Yeah.
30 years ago this week.
Yeah.
And then we had to get injected again with another set of injections. And I think altogether, we must have had about 8, 10. But you're talking about 2, 3 of each.
Yeah. This is the thing you see as well. It's not just having one, but how do they know how these things will interact with each other as well? You know.
And then we found out. So, and this is the first time as well that women had actively gone to war.
Right.
We weren't going on the front line. This was the first time. And they were trying women out. This was the first war up to this point. We could go as long as we were in the backs any other time. But this was the first time we was going to go and be on a front line, so to speak. Right. Now the girls go in the tanks, where we was the first ones, like the women before us in the Women's Royal Army Corps and things of this nature, they all sort of did it for the first time. You know, women have had to sort of always play catch up to the men.
Yeah.
So Gulf War was the first time that women had gone to the front. And then when we find out we're in the Gulf, we have all these injections just a couple of weeks before we go. The first week into January, the war's now starting to warm up. It hasn't really started yet.
Yeah, yeah.
It's cold, it's wet in the desert. We've all turned up with shorts and khaki shorts and t-shirts because we're all expecting to go sunbathing. Not really, because we're all in full uniform. But the point is, we're cold, it's raining, and we've just now going to go. We had to walk down the line with our hands on our zips while there's a medic on each side pumping stuff into you.
God, blimey, right.
And you just literally walk down the line, bang, 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 bang. And you could walk. And it's the first time as well that the British military was not prepared to have a flu outbreak. And regiments was coming down with flu.
God.
I mean, we were on our own anyway. We was one of the, because I was in an ammunition depot, so we had to go and set up before the war started. We had to go and settle the party. All of us came down with flu. I actually came down with bronchial pneumonia, and I was actually sent to the field hospital.
God,
I'm in the desert. Why have I got bronchial pneumonia? Why have I got flu?
Yeah.
I'm in the desert.
It makes you wonder,
cold
doesn't
at
it?
night, but it's hot during the day. Why have I got flu? And then as women, we all started, because beforehand they said to us, here's the pill. Don't stop taking the pill until you come back. It'll be all right for 6 months or so. And there were some girls who had the Depo-Provera, the injection. We all start to bleed together. None of us are getting any sanitary products because we've been told not, you know, we've got like a packet each in case. Come on, you know what I mean? But up to this point, we've got none for 6 months. We've got none for 20 odd girls because we're all being told, take the pill every day. Don't come on a period for 6 months. You'll be fine. Your bodies will be able to cope with it until you get home.
Right.
So we took it by the word. We all get up in the desert because of these injections. And then just before the war starts, we had to start taking these naps and baths, which is the nuclear biological and the biological tablets. And so 8 o'clock in the morning, you take one of them. And then 8 hours later, you take the other. 8 hours later, you come back to the naps. And then the baths, naps and baths. But we've just been injected with all this. Now we're taking these tablets every 8 hours. Our bedding is being sprayed with pesticides and our tents.
Good grief.
And then the oil fires start. Then we've got oil in the air because when you went like this, you could feel oil on your skin.
Good grief.
But it's weird. So this is why I'm saying it's the most toxic war in history.
Yeah.
And then you've got depleted uranium because when you were climbing all over the tanks, so some of us could have depleted uranium poisoning.
Good God. God, yeah.
So you've got all this going on, and all the women start bleeding. None of us have got any sanitary products. And in the end, there was another army base that about 2-3 miles. There was an ammo depot, and it's about 3 miles down the road. And they'd run out of food.
Right.
The one thing they had was a big box of sanitary products.
Right.
And our camp swapped food with theirs for a box of sanitary products.
God, blimey.
Because we started a period, it just never stopped. And it never stopped. Even though we were taking the pill every day, we were all bleeding.
Good God.
And we bled for weeks. And in the end, they had to send a female doctor. And she sat us all down in the sand and said, girls, stop taking the pill. They don't know what they've give you. And it's never been tested on women.
Oh, my God.
And we don't know what the eventuality of all this is going to be. And we're all sat there thinking, shit. Thinking of, what about kids? She said, we don't know.
Oh, God.
They've tested them on men, but they've barely done that. So they haven't tested those. We don't know what you're going to get. We don't know what's wrong with you. Anyway, so we all have to sort ourselves out. Anyway, as it was, thank goodness it didn't last that long, the war itself. The war, we had the war. About, I think, was it April, May? Around then, we were all coming home, so to speak. And then we could get to see a doctor and we could start. But that's when then all the issues started, because we all came down with flu. That's where the depressions started kicking in. People were coming down with depressions. And I mean, just after all these injections, people were coming down with depression. There was one lad who took the commander, the CEO of the camp, hostage in a tent. There was another one tried to run away over the burn wall with 300 miles from anywhere, right in front of us with Sudan forces. He was trying to run towards them. We had people threatening to hurt themselves. These were sane people. We were all sane people.
Yeah.
2 months before. Now, there's people that you could depend on. Even me at the time, I knew I was dependable. But I knew that if you'd have spoke to me, and there was points where I could have just loaded the rifle up, because I just knew what was going in my head wasn't me. But again, we all felt the same, so they put it down to war. Going to war. This is what happens when you're in war. No, it's not. Because I'd just done 9 months in Northern Ireland being shot at and petrol bombed. I didn't feel like that then.
No.
I didn't feel like that then, running around the streets from petrol bombs and being shot at. And I knew what it felt like, because I'd just done 9-10 months.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, I sat in the desert, no one shot at me yet. So why am I feeling?
There was more to it than that, wasn't there?
So anyway, and then we all comes back, and then it all starts dribbling out. That because obviously when any army comes back, there's always an upsurge in pregnancies.
Right. Yeah.
And there was a lot of ladies losing babies, and I'm not talking about soldiers, not us, the wives of men.
Right. Okay. Right.
They were coming home, so these were fit, healthy women, and they were losing babies. There was babies. And I remember reading or watching something that said there was a higher percentage that year of disabilities.
Right.
In the armed forces, armed forces. So they knew there was something, because there was obviously a lot going on about the Gulf War then, and the symptoms, and was there something wrong with us all, and everything else. And it's just, I honestly believe of what's going on now in 2020. And I do believe that the United Kingdom is one of the most corrupt governments in the world.
I think most governments are corrupt, but I think we're certainly up there, aren't we?
Yeah, to be fair, I think we're up there with the best. Because I think we taught everybody else. We was in charge of the world at one point. This country, if nothing else, the British government know corruption, don't they?
Yeah.
They know the fine art to them. And I think what they learned 30 years ago in the most toxic war about vaccines, and what they could put together, and what each vaccine does, because these are not idiot people.
No.
Putting down, and all these places that work out all these toxins, they're not stupid people. They know exactly what they're doing. When you call it secret, and to this day you can't tell anybody what's in it, 30 years later, I'm still suffering with this. And I say because I don't suffer with anything. I refuse to, but I'll use that word because I know there's plenty out there. It
affects you though, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it does. So I'm suffering with this each and every day. 30 years later, now they're bringing out a vaccine. We can't sue the British government. 30 years later, I'm affected, and nobody will take ownership of what they put into me.
Yeah, that's not right at all. That's not right.
Now, 30 years later, they're doing it on humanity.
Yeah. Well,
They're
luckily,
to
we'll,
inject a
yeah,
poison.
luckily they're not going to. They said they're not going to make it mandatory. We'll have to wait and
No,
see.
thank God,
Mm.
and let's hope it goes down that way. But there's still going to be a lot of people who are queuing up for it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
There's
Yeah.
going to be people. There's a group out there saying, "Do me first." Well, do you know what? Crack on, because you can have mine as well.
Well, same with me. Yeah, same with me. So
And I
let's,
just,
yeah, that I
I
mean that's a really good message, because I think at the moment, I mean, I only read today that a story just came out today that a person who'd had the Pfizer vaccine was basically was been in intensive care, and so that was, and not many people have had it yet. So I
exactly.
certainly wouldn't. I mean, I believe that it's up to your personal choice what you do with your body, really.
I
Yeah.
do that. I can't be the one that says don't do it, because just because I had a bad reaction.
Mm.
Because I know, I also understand that everybody has a bad reaction. 52,000 squaddies went to the Gulf War.
Yeah.
And not all of them came down with something.
Yeah.
But the whole camp was in lockdown for about 5 days in the middle of the desert. Nobody else was there. But 120 of us were locked down because so many of us came down with it that week.
God blimey.
But the whole camp had to be locked down in case because now, as you understand it, they didn't know what they'd created. That's why they locked us down.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
In the middle of the desert with nobody else there, to make sure none of us went anywhere.
Well, they're just monitoring everything. They were just monitoring things, weren't they, probably?
So 30 years later, they've been working on all this. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what these bugs, and for them to turn around and say, we don't know what's going to happen. Look, 30 years ago, because 52,000 of Brits went to the Gulf War. As there was so many of the Americans, so many of the French and the Canadians and all the other nations. So there's thousands of us.
Yeah, that's right.
So many of us didn't drop that day. So many of us didn't drop that month or that year. But years later, each year, it started to affect different people in different ways.
Yeah.
It affected me more or less from day one.
Yeah.
I knew something was happening. Couldn't put my finger on it, but I just knew something happening. Maybe my immune system wasn't good, but something was happening. But now I've known so many friends who've taken their own lives because they can't cope. Years later.
That's disgusting, isn't it?
Because years later, they can't, it's now mental. It's all in their head.
Yeah, no, you're right. Well, you're right.
Sorry?
It's a really that's a really important message there, Jenny. And your story is an amazing story, actually. And I think we could probably go on about that for a long time. But let's just move back a little bit now to mediumship. So when you do your mediumship, have you got some guides that you deal with on a regular basis, or
let me tell you about
people sort of coming in? How does it work for you then, really?
Yeah, when I go to open up, I go into prayer and I open up to my Father God, and I call upon Jesus Christ and the archangels and the ascending masters, and then I open up to my guides, and my guides are these wonderful, over the years, because when I first started, again 20 years ago, because it was just 2000 when I first started, and I had healer guides because I had to learn to be a healer first,
right?
And I had to learn because I had to heal myself. I can't go out healing others because when I was telling you about the man with the thing, and I went to America, when I came back from there, I went through the first church I went to, and it was a spiritualist church, and I walked in, and the lady said to me, "Don't you feel you're at home, dear?" And then I went on to college, and I learned aromatherapy and reflexology, and then I went on to do a degree in complementary therapies.
Right.
Now, that doctor was bang on with what I could learn.
Yeah.
Because then I went on and I went to learn about my guides. So I had healer guides first, but my main guide is called, and I've got to call him John. Now, John is, when people see him, he's about 7 foot. That's how he
Right.
looks. He's a
Right.
massive Zulu, blue black. I mean, black as night.
Yeah.
Just a big fella, big man. And he's my protector because he's a Zulu.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I always remember seeing the very first time I saw him, I had to go into this meditation, I had to go into this pond, and I had to go and look in. And because I didn't like myself at the time, because I had all this going on, and I had to learn to keep going. And in the end, anyway, I looked in this pond after many, many times. And as I looked into this pond, and I'm looking down, looking at myself, all of a sudden, this head come in. And it was about here. And I went, eh. And it was this black chap.
Right.
Black as night. And he just stood in front. And then I jumped up in this meditation and looked at him. And I went, who are you? And he said, you know who I am? And I knew him instinctively, but I needed still to know. Anyway, and he said to me, you can't say my name, because I just couldn't get my mouth around it.
Yeah.
So anyway, he said to me, call me the first name that comes into your mind. So that's John. Now, John he's my protector. He keeps everything running. Then I have a gentleman called Victor. He's like a little old wise man.
Yeah.
Sort of gypsy appearance. Gypsy type appearance. But he's not an old man. He's sort of middle-aged, 60-ish.
Yeah.
And he's there works with me at this point to bring in the spirit, to bring in the understanding. And then I move over to Mira. Mira is like a gypsy type traveller lady, because in my heritage, going back, we do have travellers.
Right.
She is of a traveller heritage, but I feel more Mediterranean with a sort of European type energy. Beautiful looking girl. And she brings in their passion, their life, their personalities.
Yeah.
And then there's another lady, she's just starting, she's been coming in for a couple of years, called Elizabeth. And she seems to be a knowledge bringer. And then my grandma stands at the door. She's like she's my doorkeeper. She's like the bouncer.
Right.
So
Oh, wow.
when I open up, I bring all these people in, and we say hello, and they say hello, and we say we're ready. And I ask for all the goodness and all the good things that I want for these people that I'm sitting for, all the service. And John then takes over. So he then comes around me and makes sure that everything's working to tact.
Yeah.
So, and they bring in the knowledge, and they allow the understanding and the wisdom, and they bring in the fun. Because I also believe if you're learning anything, make it fun.
Definitely. It's the best way to learn, isn't it, really?
You can't bamboozle people with knowledge and they're brain dead. Make it fun. Even when we're doing a service, lift it, drop it, lift it. And the energy's got to be lifting. Because underneath all of this, the healers are then coming in and doing their thing. Then you've got clairvoyance, or the spirits that work on the clairvoyant level, bringing in the clairvoyance, so I get a clear vessel. John's doing the protection of all of us as we open up. It's a massive undertaking, because it's not just me and John and Beryl from next door, who's just decided to tip up. There is a mountain of spirit that is performing duties all around, either whether it's you or one person or you and 50 people, because there's healers coming in, there's healers, there's wisdom bringers, there's angels coming in, there's all these different levels of spirit working amongst the people. And this is where now, as humanity, we've got to be able to get that connection and lift it. We've got to be able to connect with one another, to anchor our energy, connect with the light, and make it bigger and better. Because if I've got all them guides and helpers with me,
Yeah.
How many more of us has got all the same guides and helpers?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And together, then, if we all open up and we all bring in the love and the light, we then open the way ahead for our spirit friends and our helpers to bring in the spirit light, which then opens it up to a higher dimension for the angelic energy to come through.
Yeah.
And humanity then gets lifted.
Yeah.
And this is not just about being a medium, it's about understanding the energy of what's around us. And that's why it's important these days, people don't live in fear.
Yeah, that's right.
We can't live in fear. We cannot live in fear, Jason.
100% agree. Well, we nearly sort of at the end, so
yeah, no, that's fine, sweet.
I'll just a couple of seconds. We've got a lot of people commenting, just saying that you've had an amazing story and that you should write a book one day. So that's, I think that's right. I mean, I don't know much about your story until we spoke tonight. It's an amazing story you've got, actually, and it's fascinating. Is that so? We've just got another 5 minutes, so let's just finish off on a bit of a positive sort of vibe, really, because that's the key. But just tell people, give people a little bit of a positive message going forward, because we are living in trying times, really, at the moment, aren't we? With mental health issues and lockdowns and all this kind of nonsense. So just give people a 5 minutes, just a few minutes of positive message, really, I think, for people.
Always, everybody needs just to remember, we're not in this on our own. And when it comes on the telly, we're all in this together. But in a spiritual sense, remember, we are all in this together. There is a spiritual war going on, us against the naughties. And the more fear that you live in, the more energy you give to the left-hand side, to the negative side of life.
Yeah.
So you must remain in your power, standing in your own power and stepping into it, and remembering the person that you are. Because and really remember it, go within. At the minute, everything's without. We're all commenting about everybody else's lives. Draw it in a little bit and come back to the center point. The center, and this is why we do this in prayer, because the center point is connection to your Father God. Right. And as that energy comes from the Mother Earth into the body, and some other time we'll go through this if you like. We'll do another one, because it's about bringing the energy in and bringing it around. And we open up through the heart chakra to our Father God. But this beautiful energy that surrounds us, you're it, you're perfection. You are a creator. You are whatever God created, you're it in one package. We all are. And this is why the naughties are trying to stop us, because you don't realise your own power, your own strength and your own light. Don't let anybody tell you that you're unworthy of it. Don't let anybody diminish the light that is within, because once we stand together, one flicker can create a mountain of flames.
100%. Like you said, I think what you mentioned earlier, Jenny, about every time you spread the positivity, you're connecting to people, and you're spreading that positivity out in that vibration as well.
And we've got to, at the minute, we need, and this is why I'm saying one flicker can create a blaze. And we have to be a blaze. We have to come together, and every human is a flicker. And we all have that flicker of the God force within us. Once we connect that flicker with, like I'm connecting with you, Jason, and we all, and everybody who's listening, we all connect together, we create a blaze. And that blaze, then we can go out and we can shine the light into the darkest corners of this world, because there are so many people within them. Shine your light, stand in your power, and be proud of who you are. And it doesn't matter what religion you are, how you pray to your God, or who you feel your God is, because at the end of the day, there's only one road. And right now, we're all on it. It doesn't matter what religion you want to call it, whether you're Jehovah's Witness or a Christian or at the minute, we're fighting for survival of humanity. And we have to, and I will say it, these vaccinations and this world at the minute is trying to kill the God force within us, within the pineal gland.
100%.
I do believe that. That's why people like us who are awake need to stand together and create the wave of positive energy, so all of us together can stand up. Because when we all stamp our feet, the world will listen.
Exactly. That's a perfect message, and that's a perfect way to end. Really, people have got to realise that they have the power. The government doesn't have the power. It's only it's when we give them the power that they have power. So, that's a really good positive message. But maybe we can come back and do another talk another day, because this has been a really fascinating evening actually. And with this message that you've given today. This will be available now on YouTube, so people can share it around and spread the word. But before we finish tonight, Jenny, if someone wants to get in contact with you, wants to ring, or wants to speak to you, just tell everyone how they can get in touch with you.
Well, you can get in touch with me on Facebook with Jenny Moore Medium. Oh God, what's one? Or you can get me by email with spiritjenny66@gmail.com. I think my other page is closed down for this time, but them two are the easiest ways. I don't do any of the other social media because I can only cope with one at a time, to be fair.
Yeah. we don't want to get too bogged down in social media.
Facebook is enough for me at this point.
No, that's been great though. I've really enjoyed the interview and chatting to yourself, and I'm sure everyone else who's watching this has enjoyed it. And when it'll be shared out as well. So yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming on, Jenny, and we'll probably talk sometime in the future then.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hope you didn't bore you all. So, but thank you for allowing me to share the bits of knowledge I've got.
Yeah, well, it's been a fascinating story, and as I say, so if anyone's watching, obviously this is Jenny Moore. We'll every week or so we'll have interesting guests on. So follow us, like the page, get the notifications, and keep in touch with us. So we're going to sign off tonight now. So thanks for coming, Jenny, and we'll sign off for tonight then.
Good night and God bless, friends.